all know that the IRS is powerful. They are the most powerful collection agency in this country. They can go against your bank account, they can garnish your wages, they can do a lot of things that regular credit card companies can't necessarily do. However, taxpayers have rights. People think that whatever the IRS says, that's what it is and it's over. No. You can always ask to speak to a supervisor. You can always speak to the supervisor's manager. You can always appeal your case. You can always take your case to tax court even if you want to.
You've tuned in to Leaders with a Mission. My name is Diana Castro, and if you feel overwhelmed about any tax issues, we got you today. So if you're dealing with any IRS hiccups or you have questions about IRS, this show is for you. All right, so let me introduce you to someone very special. Her name is Gretchen Espinosa, and she is a tax resolution expert. She's also a CPA, so more power to her. Her mission is to support clients navigate the complexities of tax issues with clarity and confidence. Welcome, Gretchen.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
I'm so excited.
Well, let's tackle this whole thing, but before we even do that, I feel like you are such an inspiration. Your story is very special. You were CPA. Can you tell me a little bit how you got involved with CPA, just so that our audience knows a little bit more about your story? Tell me about that.
Sure. My dad's an accountant. I've always loved numbers. Math was always my thing. When I was in school, I had an internship at a bank at 16 and I loved it. And I started going to college for a bachelor's in accounting. Then I went and got my master's and then did my CPA. I've worked in corporate accounting most of my life. And then I decided, you know what, I'm tired of this. I want to open my own business. And I went and I joined my dad in the business that they have, my parents actually. And I've just grown it and we've expanded to the area of representation. We started with tax work, for small businesses and individuals, but I've expanded it to the areas of representation, which I feel there's a lack in the industry to help people that have IRS problems.
Beautiful. So that's why we're here today. So I know that one of the things we talked about in the preparation of this is that there's currently a misconception about the IRS currently, at the time that we're in, hiring all this workforce. I think it's 80,000 people to work in the IRS. And there's a lot of misconceptions about, is the IRS gonna get us all? Can you tell us a little bit about what you know as an insider in the CPA world?
So yes, there is a lot of misconceptions in that area. Right now, the probabilities of somebody being audited is less than 0.5%. Okay, so let's start there. The IRS did get a budget of $80 billion, but it's over a period of 10 years. And half of that money is going to go towards enforcement. So they're going to increase the percentage of people that get audited. But like I just said, only 0.5% are currently being audited. So it's not like it's going to go to this huge number, right? But the idea is to improve enforcement. The other part of that money is going to go towards improving the IRS technology. Their technology dates back to the 60s. They're going to be working with AI. They're going to be working with improving everything that the IRS does. Another part of is customer service. Have you ever tried calling the IRS?
No, but I can imagine.
You could probably spend an entire day, literally from 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night trying to call them, and your call will get disconnected. They can't hear you. The person that you reach doesn't know, and they can't transfer you to another department. That's how bad it is. So they are working on improving their system. Now, some people think like, well, who wants to pay taxes? I mean, I don't want to pay taxes. I get that. But the reality of it is taxes is what makes this country move. We need that for our military. We need that for our homeland security. We need that for our firefighters. All that money comes from taxes. Whether we like it or not, that's how it's run. And unfortunately, there's a huge tax gap. A tax gap is the difference between what the IRS is estimated to collect versus what it actually collects. And they had research that showed, and they release this every year, where the IRS said the 2021 tax gap was estimated to be around $688 billion for 1 year, which means most of that money was not collected by the IRS because people underreported other taxes.
Okay, so the concept that the IRS is out to get you and is gonna, bring all the forces to your house and like take everything you own, it's not necessarily what's gonna happen. So thank you for like giving us a little bit of ease on that. And then there's also another misconception that I know you are very passionate about, and that is that taxpayers have rights.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I wonder, where is the mystification needs to be?
Well, we all know that the IRS is powerful, right? They are the most powerful collection agency in this country. They can go against your bank account. They can garnish your wages. They can do a lot of things that regular credit card companies or, anybody that you owe money to can necessarily do. However, yes, taxpayers have rights. People think that whatever the IRS says, that's what it is and it's over. No. So if you're in the middle of an audit, for example, and the auditor is disallowing some expenses that you know are legitimate expenses, you can always ask to speak to a supervisor. You can always speak to the supervisor's manager. You can always appeal your case. You can always take your case to tax court, even if you want to. Or you can, if everything is just going completely crazy, which can happen, right? There's what's called Taxpayers Advocate, and it's an organization within the IRS that is designed to protect the taxpayers' rights. Their focus is not to back up the IRS. The focus is to make sure that the taxpayer is being protected and that the IRS employee at whichever level, from top to bottom, that is following the IRS rules and regulations.
Got it, which is great. So let's talk about what could get people in trouble to get audited. And then can people get audited who are not supposed to get audited? Can you tell us about that? And maybe before we start, can you tell us the definition of an audit?
So an audit is when the IRS picks up your taxes for review. They can pick up your taxes randomly, or they can pick up your taxes based on certain things in your return that trigger the audit. So every tax return has a diff score. So this is it's a grade, let's say. And this grade is assigned to your tax return the moment you submit your tax return. And it's based on what you're claiming, and it's based on historical data that might be out there. It's based on what source documents were submitted, like maybe you didn't submit a W-2, right? And they have that W-2. So all these different things give your return this score, okay? The higher the score, the higher the probability of you being audited. So they can be picked for that. It can be picked randomly. It can be picked because the preparer that did your tax return, they have an issue, and all of a sudden now all those returns that preparer did are being looked at. So there's a lot of things that could pick up a return for an audit.
Beautiful. And okay, let's say you receive an audit.
Mm-hmm.
What next? What options do people have once you have an audit? Do you call them up? Do you talk to them? Is there anybody that supports them? Tell me more.
So the audit letter will typically say what's being audited. And there's different types of audits. There are audits where it's just over the mail. It's a correspondence audit where you just have to answer what they're asking you for and send it over to them. You're never going to speak to anyone unless you choose to call. But and then there's local audits where every city, every county has an IRS office. So that IRS office has auditors. So they could also pick up your return for audit. Generally, those are more complex audits, but still the audit letter will tell you what items are being audited. And you can, if you're not sure, right, you can always ask for them to give you a little bit more information. I would say never volunteer extra information. Just limit yourself to what's being asked. Unfortunately, people think that the auditor is there to help them. The auditor is not there to help you. The auditor is there to do a job, and they have to follow the law. But at the end of the day, they're humans, and I'm sure they see a lot of cases every day. And for them, everybody's guilty. That's not how it works. But for a lot of them, there's a lot of bad apples out there that, are out there to get you. and people just are, are feeling that, oh, this person it's here to help me, because that's what they're trying to tell you. That's what they're going to tell you. I'm here to help you. But in reality, they're just there.
They work for the IRS.
They're doing their job. They're doing their job.
So what do I do? Do I go talk to my CPA? Do I hire a tax resolution expert? How do I know who do I go to? Do I talk to an attorney? Like, what are the options? Let's say if you feel like, oh my goodness, I don't know what my CPA did. Can they, like, people may feel overwhelmed by, the IRS is after you.
Yeah, a lot of people are scared, right? When they get that letter, I have clients where they're like, oh, I'm terrified. I don't even want to open the mail. And if you get a ticket, would you go to the ticket clinic?
Yeah,
that's what most people do, right? They get a speeding ticket, and they'll call an attorney for a ticket clinic, or a ticket that it's like $200 something. Mm-hmm. So not all cases require representation. You can, if they're asking you information that maybe you can answer, you can certainly do it by yourself. But if you think that the audit it's getting complex, or if you are not comfortable speaking to them, you can absolutely get representation. You can hire an enrolled agent, you can hire a CPA, or you can hire an attorney. Typically, unenrolled preparers are not allowed to represent clients before the IRS, but if they did the return, they can represent you. But why would you hire the person that did the return to represent you? Typically, the best way to go about an audit, if something's wrong, you kind of blame the preparer. Even though that's not going to get you very far, but the preparer is never going to blame, they're never going to blame themselves, right? They're not going to say, oh, I made a mistake. I filed.
Or it's not likely to happen. Yeah, but definitely it is not in your best interest, because it's a conflict of interest. Either is their fault or like the client's fault. And if they're going to represent you, then so the alternative would be another CPA, or
another CPA that specializes in this area, right? Because not a lot of people specialize in this area.
Got it.
I don't know if you remember, I showed you the big map where it's like this huge maze of all the ways your case can go within the IRS. If you don't spend the time and the money, I guess, and the resources to prepare and to know how it works, and all you do is file a tax return, you don't really know all the steps, right? Where you can go to get represented. To get represented.
Yeah, it's like, your doctor, like your general doctor, is not going to be your foot surgeon. Like,
exactly.
Hello.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
So the same thing with attorneys. You have bankruptcy attorneys. You have different types of attorneys, but do they specialize in representation?
Beautiful. So let me ask you, what are some common mistakes that get people in trouble when it comes to taxes? Our audience is mainly entrepreneurs, but then again, that's not our only audience. So I want you to give me a sense of like, where do you see the most pitfalls for regular humans and then entrepreneurs?
For individuals, I would say sometimes filing too early. And I'm not saying the opposite is good either. Filing late is not good either, but sometimes people think, oh, I haven't gotten this form, I'll just file it next year. No. So if you're doing your 2023 tax returns, you need to make sure you have all your documents. If you had 2 jobs, you need to make sure you have your 2 W-2s. Because if it was lost in the mail, I'm sure the IRS didn't lose their copy, and they got their copy. So what's going to happen is you're going to file your return, you're going to get your refund in about a year, or you're going to pay whatever you're supposed to pay. But what's going to happen is in about a year, the IRS is going to come back they're going to send you a notice of deficiency. And that's going to say, this W-2, you didn't report it. Now you owe me this money, this amount in taxes. And now that money you have to pay with interest, with penalties, mainly accuracy related penalties. So it's better to wait to make sure you have all your documents before you go and start filing your tax return. On the other side of that is, don't file late. If you're gonna get a refund, you don't have to file. You have 3 years and you can get your refund. The IRS doesn't care. There's no penalties if you get a refund. Why? Because they still have your money. But if you're gonna owe money, either file with an extension, okay, or file on time. Because what happens is you have penalties for not filing on time. So there's failure to file penalties that start to accumulate when you don't file the return. And they continue to accumulate until you're done paying the debt. So let's say you filed in June without an extension, but you don't pay your taxes till 2 years later.
Yikes.
That's going to accumulate for those 2 years. So you might as well, even if you don't have the money, you might as well file the tax return on time and pay it later and deal with it later. But at least you're not having those failure to file penalties. Sorry.
So you can even pay, like if you don't have the money, then that's a misconception as well.
Yeah.
I don't want to file because I don't have the money to pay. So let me just wait. That will get you in more trouble.
Yes, absolutely.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, awesome. So, but then in the other side for business owners,
For business.
what gets them usually in trouble that they may not know about?
So the biggest thing, in my opinion, is wrong structure. Meaning, we all have an idea and we decide, I'm just going to start my business. And you're focused on the way you're going to run it. You're focused on the operations part of the business. But you don't take the time to go to a CPA and figure out, should I open an LLC? Should I open a corporation? What should I do? No, you're just focused on running the business. And when you're starting, it's not a big deal. You're a sole proprietor. You're just not making that much money. Probably you're even losing money in the beginning. So it really doesn't make a difference. But as the business starts to grow, if you don't pay attention to what structure do I have? Is it an LLC? Do I have an S corporation election? Is it a corporation? Do I have an S corporation election on that? You don't focus on that and the business all of a sudden explodes and you start having all this huge profit. Now you have tax problems because you might have a structure where you're paying too much in taxes. You're not doing any tax planning. And the other thing that I would say that I would suggest would be record keeping. So we're thinking, Tony Robbins calls it optics. He calls it optics. Can you imagine flying a plane with nothing?
That would be a disaster.
That would be a disaster. But a lot of business owners run their business that way. And that's the reason why not most, but a lot of businesses fail. Because they don't really know how much money am I making? Am I losing money? Is this department making me money? Is this project making me lose money? They don't know. So they're just going with the flow. And then all of a sudden they realize, oh, I'm $50,000 into debt. Where did all that money go to? And it's because your business not working. Something in your business isn't working. So if you don't have accurate financial records, because everybody hates accounting. Everybody hates taxes, right?
I hate is a very strong word.
Well,
strongly dislike.
Yes.
Maybe.
But that's what, if you have accurate optics, if you're looking at your numbers, that's how you realize, okay, something is not working. So I need to fix it. And if you wait a year, by the time you just do your taxes, a year already has gone by. And what happened?
Yeah, it could have been fixed earlier. I wonder, we did a set of videos with you. And one of the things I learned was that a lot of people do not pay payroll taxes. And that's something, or they do it wrong. So I wonder if you can share with us a little bit more about that, because I feel like not knowing this could truly get people in trouble. I didn't know. Thank God I have like a whole system based on what I was recommended by my CPA. And there's people that, like you said, are flying their plane with no optics. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so payroll taxes is a whole new game, right? So if you do your taxes and you don't pay the IRS, they're gonna come after you. They're gonna make you make a payment plan. They have their things that they can do. But when you're dealing with payroll taxes, you're basically taking money from your employee's salary and not giving it to the IRS. And that's a benefit that the IRS in a few years is gonna have to pay. So you're essentially double dipping into their money. So it's going to cost them. So payroll issues can generate legal consequences, severe legal consequences, personal even, because you think, okay, well, I'll close my business No, they can go after you personally. They can take you to jail because you're stealing your employees' payroll taxes. You're taking money out of their paycheck, money that they earned, and you're not sending it to the IRS. That's completely different, and it gets people in trouble. They make a choice. I'll pay my employee and I'll pay these payroll taxes later. No, that's a big one. That's a really, really big one.
And what options do people have if they find themselves in that trouble?
They can always get representation. There's a payment plan. There's offering compromise where, I don't know if you've heard it on the radio, pennies on the dollars. If you qualify, there's currently not collectible. There's different things that can be done that could help you, reduce that burden. Now, the way I see it, if it's just an inconvenience, because for some of us, paying the taxes is just the inconvenience. I'd rather have that Land Rover parked outside than pay my taxes. That's an inconvenience. So if the IRS determines that it's an inconvenience, and it's not that you really can't afford to pay it because your business is going down, because you just can't, then you have to figure out a way through a payment plan, like I said, through an offer in compromise, something. The first step is getting in compliance. If you have a payroll problem or an IRS problem, any problem in general, if you're not in compliance, if you're just repeating the same mistake, there's never going to be an end to that. There's never going to be a fix because they're not going to want to work with you. They want to make sure, okay, you had a problem last year. You had a problem during COVID, right? I understand that. I'm going to work with you, but I need you to be good.
Yeah.
And if you keep being bad, then they're just going to come back and say, forget everything that we talked about. Now you owe me all the money and I'm going to put a lien on your house and I'm going to go and collect your receivables from your customers and I'm going to do whatever it is I have to do to get that money.
And I know you help all these people, so this is kind of like up your alley. So everyone that comes to the show answers this question. And you are brought here because I consider you a leader in this space. So I wonder, what is your personal definition of leadership?
So I remember when I was going to business school, we talked about tone at the top.
Okay.
And the idea that the tone at the top is what sets the foundation of a business, right? To me, being a leader is being able to go first, not asking your employees or your team to do something that you're not willing to do. So that for me is number one. And number two is creating a culture where everybody's allowed to do the right thing. I like doing the right thing, even when nobody's watching. So that for me is so important because I came from a business where I worked before where that wasn't the case. And everybody always felt like they were walking on eggshells. I don't like that. I like my employees to know that they can do the right thing, even if it's not in the best interest of the company, right? Even if it's not in the best interest of the bottom line, which that's technically what most people are focused on, just the bottom line. For me, it's important to know that we're doing the right thing, that they're doing the right thing, that I'm good with my conscience and that they're good with their conscience. That for me is the most important thing.
And that's why I love you so much, because I feel like there's a lot of people who would rather take the easy way out. And I know in my heart that that's not the way that you operate. So thank you for modeling leadership with integrity. And then I wonder, what books, what feeds your soul? How do you continue your journey through leadership and entrepreneurship?
I love self-help books, but since this is about finances and taxes, I would suggest people to read The Psychology of Money. I love that book because it gives us an understanding about our relationship to money and why we have that relationship to money. I personally love that book. And if you're not good with finances, or if you're just starting and you want to grow, become an investor, I don't know. I have my kids right now reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So we're listening to that in the car and they love it. And it sets a good foundation because a lot of the times what people are lacking is the financial knowledge, financial background to kind of know which way to go. And it's never too early to start. So my kids are doing Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and they love it. They listen to it in the car and they make investing decisions, and they love it.
Awesome. And in a personal note, what fits your soul?
My family.
Aw.
Having time with my family and being able to spend time with them, and my kids teach me a lot. Sometimes the lessons they're school of hard rock, they're tough lessons, but
Yeah, they keep you grounded.
they keep me grounded.
I
very
love
much.
that. For those people who may not know where to find you, where can they find you?
Our website is reliabletaxdefense.com, and I'm also on Instagram, Gretchen Espinosa, Reliable Tax Defense.
Thank you, Gretchen, for taking the time to be in with us. Your wisdom and knowledge is so needed in the world, especially when there's so much information and misinformation, or there's people just bombarded with a lot of opinions sometimes. So thank you so much for coming over.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
I know, I told you it was gonna be fun. So that's pretty much it, guys. You heard it here. If you need any support with your taxes, here's my girl. And if you want to grow and, get more visibility on your mission with the power of video, I'm gonna invite you to visit us at forproductions.com. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.